It's really good to be here. There's been such good insights being given across so many people, and what we're going to do now is give some more of those from some of the best in the business. So I feel very privileged and excited to be sitting here across this group of CX leaders. We've got 90 years of combined experience within the space. I know, I looked it up. But there's lots to be shared here, so I'm really excited to dive into it. We're going to do quick introductions, so I'll pass it over to you, Michelle.
Hi everyone, my name is Michelle. I'm the head of marketing for a company called BrandAlley. For those of you who don't know, BrandAlley is the UK's largest members-only off-price flash sales website. Bit of a mouthful.
Over to you, Tony.
Hi, I'm Tony. I'm the CEO of Feefo. We're an invitation-only reviews and business insights platform.
Hi everyone, I'm Dave. I'm from Virgin Red, which I will explain. Everyone's heard of Virgin. A few people have heard of Virgin Red. I've been there for about 14 months now.
Hey, I'm Jem, formerly at ManyPets, which is a insurtech pet insurance startup, and before that 15 or so years in CX, mostly in the insurance industry.
Great. Well, thanks for all taking part in this. I'm really excited to get going. So let's jump right in. And to kick things off, Dave, can you give us a little bit of insight? Tell us a little bit more about Virgin Red and how you're currently engaging with your customer advocates.
Super, yeah. So Virgin Red, everyone will have heard of Virgin. We've probably got many, many customers within the room here. And we've got some colleagues as well. Virgin Experience Days are here as well as someone from Red. But Virgin Red sits within the middle of what's around about 50 different Virgin businesses, actually. And the role that we play within the organization is trying to pull together customer data and customer experience in a way that means that customers get more from being within the Virgin ecosystem. So you use different parts of Virgin, you get a kickback, and it incentivizes you to stay with Virgin more. And from a Virgin Red point of view, that's a loyalty program. Essentially, you collect points when you do things within Virgin, and you get to use those points. So the starting premise is really good, actually. There should be some stuff there that customers would love, because you're buying services from Virgin, you're flying on our planes, you're maybe buying our wines, and you're collecting points, and you use those to upgrade your flight to upper class, or you use it for a cabin on a cruise in the Med. So if you think about the brand love opportunity, if you think about what that would feel like for the customer, there's a really powerful place to start there. From an advocacy point of view, we're fairly early on in our journey, actually, and MentionMe have been working with us for about 8 months now to start to try and use advocacy with the customers who are our best value ones to encourage them to get more people to join us. We're at a very, very, very early stage of that. Some of the stuff you heard this morning around the dandelion, around trying to think about the pay-it-forward view of customer value, we're scratching the surface of that now. But where we're at currently, MentionMe's driving around about 10% of the people that we acquire every week through our own channels, which is a good start. It feels really promising, but very, very early stages.
Really good start. And I love what you just said there around understanding how the customer feels about it. I think that's really important and a key thing to tap into. Michelle, over to you. How are you engaging customer advocates at BrandAlley?
So we started working with MentionMe back in 2017, but before that, we understood that our customers, they were referring their friends and family to BrandAlley anyway, and we understood then, as we do now, that word-of-mouth marketing is essential for sustainable business growth, but we needed a way in order to unlock word-of-mouth referral as an acquisition channel. So that's where MentionMe came in, and what drew us to them in the very beginning was the name share tool. And we liked that because it was something that our customers could use organically in everyday conversations. And we also thought it resonated quite well with our customers too, because we look at ourselves as a bit of a club, because you have to be a member to shop on BrandAlley. And it was just this kind of exclusive thing that our customers could do. Oh, if you mention my name, you'll get something nice for that. So we liked it. We knew our customers would like it. They did, and they still do, and over 37% of our customers that we acquire through referral are still coming from that name share tool. So it was important to us back in 2017, and it still is today. But since then, as we've been on this journey to advocacy, how we're using referral has evolved. So we still use name share, but we're also using that data across other channels too. So we've actually, the tactics that were mentioned earlier, the Mention Me tactics within immersives, we've put those live. And since they've gone live, I've got my notes here so I don't go off track, we've seen a 21% increase in the number of new customers that are coming in from referral. They also have a 12% higher open rate versus our next best performing campaigns. And we've seen a 25% increase in our repeat purchase rate too. So that's been huge for us on email. We've also been using it across on our paid channels too. We've built lookalike audiences based on the customer, our referral customer, because we know that's really rich and we haven't been unlocking it properly until this point. And since we've gone live with those audiences, we've seen a 17% increase in our click-through rate, a 280% increase in the number of leads that are coming in through paid social, which is massive for us, and a 25% decrease in the cost per acquisition. So those are just some of the ways that we're using the data.
Yeah, I love the stats. and you talked about the technology being a part of that and making sure that it's integrated. Beyond that, what are the key foundations that you recommend to have in place to really drive that growth and get advocacy going?
Sure. So it's actually really, really simple, and it's been a huge topic across all of the talks today. It's about understanding our customer, and I know that's so cliche to say, but it's so important. We need to understand our customers, and we need to understand the right way to communicate to them. And we all here, like everyone sat in this room will go, we know exactly what our customer wants and how they think. We don't. We think we do, but we don't. And when you think about it, the customer needs are always evolving and constantly changing. And you as a brand, you need to be one step ahead of that. Like you need to anticipate what your customer wants to receive from you. So I would say that is the first thing. As well as that, like we've seen incredible results from our referral program at Mention Me, but it didn't happen overnight. The way we got to where we are now is because of incremental testing and changing. So we started off with, quite a basic kind of referral offer. And over the years, we've played around with that because we're trying to think, what do our customers actually want? We think they want a discount, but is that right? Not always. So we've actually tested things like the language that we've been using on our referrals. So quite an interesting one is the give versus get. And I'm happy to say that our customers are all very, very selfless, and they would rather give an offer to their friends than get an offer themselves. So just little things like that. It's very simple and it's easy to do, and that's how you'll get to kind of great heights, if you will, over time. So those are the two most important things, I would say.
Absolutely. Okay. And Michelle just mentioned the importance of customer psychology and understanding that. I think a really big part of that is gathering feedback from your customers and understanding that feedback. But how do you go from feedback to driving advocacy? Tony, can you tell us what you think about that?
Great question. Thank you. As a feedback platform, I think one of the things that we recognise the importance of is data integrity. So we've spoken a lot about data today and trust and so forth. So Feefo are the only platform that provides verified purchaser data. So the clients that work with us really leverage that data to take better decisions. And that data, which initially comes in really as verbatim feedback, is translated into all sorts of different insight. So that could be sentiment analysis, as you kind of just mentioned earlier. It could be topics and themes that tell you about what your brand is doing well and where it can improve. And by using that data intelligently, we work with our clients to really identify who the detractors are, but also what their advocates look like. So for us as a data business, I think we're really known as stars on a website is the way that most people think of reviews, which really saddens me, because that really is a kind of commodity view of reviews. I think the more enlightened clients that we work with, of course all of our clients are very enlightened, really dig into the data, really understand the value of analytics, and from that they can kind of build a path towards moving more of their customer base towards becoming super advocates.
Yeah, great. And Dave, at Boots and now at Virgin Red, you've done a lot in this space and used data intelligently. Can you give a little bit more insight into recommendations on what you think, what more people could be doing with that?
I think it's easy to lose sight of what it is that we're trying to get people to be advocates of. And for me, there's some real basics you've got to get in place. You have to build a brand that people admire and deliver experiences that people love. And if you can get that right, then at least you've got some substance for people to share. And we can talk about the use of data, and we can talk about fantastic technology and databases and dashboards that we can use. But if in essence your starting point isn't rich enough for people to go, God, I love this, you can't really get out the blocks. So firstly, for me, I think there's something really important about building something that people really enjoy or really love or really feel is valuable to them. You know, if I think about my own world, I don't know how many times I've recommended The Wire, or how many people I've got to watch Gone Fishing, or how many Sonos speakers I've sold. Not because Sonos have paid me, it's just I think it's good and a lot better than the Bang & Olufsen speaker that you've got, I'm sorry to say. Credit to Sonos. So for me, there's something there about getting that bit right. I think then what we've got to think about is, and we're really in the foothills of this ourselves, what are the points in the customer journey of kind of maximum love, if you don't mind the term? In our world, is it the moment that you get back from the holiday to New York that you paid for with your points? Or is it the very first redemption that you got where you built some points up and you treated yourself to something you didn't have to pay for? Because we could just blunderbuss and say to people, tell your friends about us. But if we do that at a point where they're most likely to feel brilliant about it, we're much likely to be more successful. And I'm really excited to see how we can start to think about the data that's available, map it against the customer journey, and then start to build Mention Me or other solutions into the right stage of those customer journeys to get the maximum impact.
Yeah, I love that. Understanding those moments of customer delight is really exciting, and thinking about how you can stand out from different brands by really engaging at those points. That feels, it feels like we've covered a lot of foundations. Jem, really interested to hear from you on if hopefully everyone is really bought into the idea of really driving that advocacy strategy. What's your advice on getting started? Where do you start? How do you get started?
Yeah, it feels like it's a lot, right? We've heard so much amazing information today, and even as somebody who has done this for 15 years, I've gone, wow, there's so much in there, and it can feel a bit overwhelming. So my general advice would be just to get started, right? Don't worry too much about whether it's perfect, what it looks like exactly. Find the easiest way, the simplest way, or just start with a small segment of your customers. And experiment. Adam, the ex-scientist, talked earlier about experimenting, and that's fun to do, right? Because you can see what works and what doesn't. And a lot of organizations are already doing something. They might have a CSAT survey already, or they might be doing something with reviews already, and you can even just start to add an NPS question, for example, into that and start to get some information going and understand, you know, what that means a bit more. The biggest thing for me is always that actually doing something like an advocacy program is cultural, and so it does take time to get throughout an organization. So it's never too late to start, and at the same time, earlier is better, because the minute you can build it into your culture, the more that kind of grows as you add more and more people into your organization over time.
Yeah, I like being part of the culture feels really key to me. Hopefully we can all embrace that and build cultures around it. Tony, I'm really interested, I've looked at a lot of brands start with reviews. When they're starting this advocacy journey, they start with reviews. What's your view on how they can go beyond that?
Beyond reviews, really good question. I mean, I think one of the things that I personally worry about, and therefore we worry as a business, is that often, as I hinted in your earlier question really, I worry that brands start to think of reviews really just as a hygiene factor, as a commodity. Stars on a website, tick the box, move on. I think they're missing a massive opportunity to really leverage the data. So one of the things that we started talking about with our clients is what we call the value exchange. And I heard it mentioned earlier today, actually. The value exchange for us, from our perspective, is trying to encourage our clients to build a dialogue, really, common sense with a consumer. I worry that there's potential consumer fatigue around feedback, whether it's SMS, as we were hearing earlier, whether it's email, whether it's WhatsApp. We do it with good intentions, but all brands now are asking consumers for their time. And we've been doing it for 10 plus years. Have you got 4 minutes, 8 minutes? And if you're really lucky to get a BA survey, It's about 38 pages worth of questions. Don't do that. So I think we've got to think about the consumers and the return on time invested on their part. So that's what we're encouraging our clients to think about, is that value exchange. So it goes beyond just asking for feedback and collecting feedback. It's then providing the consumer with a response, and not just a platitude, thank you for your feedback, we really value it, but try and tailor the response and make it context sensitive. So if they told you that the towels in the hotel room were not up to standard, try and find a way of giving them some value in the response, and talk about the towels, and talk about how important that feedback was and what you're going to do next time. So really acting on feedback and providing a tangible evidence, really, that you're listening and you value that feedback. And I think the brands that do that will convert more acquired customers to loyalists, and eventually loyalists to advocates.
And I think one of the biggest challenges in this space is really being able to track this. I think we've all bought in that this is the right thing for our businesses. We want to grow through our customer base, show the customer love. But what are the metrics that we should track? How do we see if it's successful or not? Jem, what's your experience in that?
Yeah, I think it's tricky because often you need different metrics either at different points in your journey or at different types of experiences. So what I would typically do is I would cover NPS as much as I can where I think it's relevant. So I would have NPS on a relational level, which means trying to understand how customers feel about your brand, regardless of whether they've just had an experience with you or not. And I'd also try and cover NPS on a transactional level. So if something's just happened, try and find out how they feel about likelihood to recommend. In a web journey, though, if someone's in a web sales e-com journey and they're dropping out, I'm probably not going to ask them an NPS question. I'm probably going to either do nothing and just track, or I'm going to stick a pop-up that kind of says, you know, can we help you? Or, you know, we see we might be about to leave. I think there is lots of place for other metrics. Some people really still like to use customer satisfaction. I think customer effort can be really useful, again, depending on what the experience is that someone's having. But ultimately, you need to galvanize behind something. And also at board level, and for your CFO, as we talked about earlier, you're going to need one main thing that you talk about, because yes, we might get it and it might be what we spend our lives in, but actually for kind of board and C-suite, you do need to kind of stick to probably a main metric, and typically for me that would be NPS that I would use.
Interesting. Okay, and how does that compare to what you're tracking, Michelle? What do you think is important?
Sure, so definitely NPS is important. And I suppose, like I was saying about customers and their behaviors and their expectations are constantly changing and evolving. I guess in a way, like marketing metrics are too. And you know, we all know that acquisition is so expensive now, but it's an essential tool. It's not going anywhere. So, you know, I guess we need to, one, start looking at things a little bit differently. And, you know, we talked earlier about how important it is to kind of embrace change. And one way that we're kind of doing that is we've paired it back, and BrandAlley would always look at their most valuable customers as what we call a VIP, a very important person, very important customer, and we were looking at them based entirely on how much they were spending. You know, and that worked for us, and you know, we were literally ticking the box and moving on, thinking we've got this high value group of customers that come every year, they spend a certain amount, happy days. However, like as we've kind of gotten further and further down this journey to advocacy, as we're all here to talk about today, we've realized that they aren't our most valuable group of customers. They're definitely valuable, I'm not saying they're not, but as we've seen through the day, like customers are worth so much more than just what they're spending themselves. So we've shifted our thinking and looking, rather than just looking at customers as VIP, we now look at them, our most valuable customers, as VIAs, so very important advocates. Because yeah, we're looking at what they're spending, we're also looking at how often they're sharing, who are they inviting to BrandAlley, what's the value of that network that they're bringing in, that extended customer revenue. Like that's so important to us now. And the reason that's a valuable metric to us is because it's essentially unlocked this kind of untapped group of customers that we were essentially just sitting on and not utilizing properly. And now that we understand that a bit better, we're speaking to them differently. So they're getting, different types of emails, for example. We're using SMS differently. So for those, that's a crucial one. And I think that's a valuable one too, because we all have customers. So it's an easy one to kind of go back and look at and just make sure that you're using your customers in the best possible way.
Can I add as well, I forgot to say
do.
earlier,
Yeah, please do.
that the other group of metrics that I would look at is also employee metrics. So if we think about voice of the customer and we think about voice of data or process or whatever other metrics we might be looking at, like marketing, for example, also looking at employee metrics is really key. So like I said earlier, because I personally really believe that running a program of customer advocacy, customer love is very much a cultural thing. Understanding how engaging employees in that and what impact that has on their role and how they feel about doing their job and working at the brand. Typically what I've seen over time is that employee metrics improve as customer metrics improve, because people feel that they actually are empowered to do something about improving the lives of their customers, and that makes them feel good too.
Yeah, I love that. It's really doing what you're talking about, right, and implementing it. Also love VIAs. Andy, we need to trademark that.
I'll sell it to you, Andy.
Great. So we're just going to close up. I don't know if we have a microphone. I would like to try and open it up to questions if possible. But before we do that, just one piece of advice. If you want anyone to leave with one thing, what do you want them to leave with today? We'll start with you, Michelle.
I would say, it's going back to Gemma's point, just start. Even if you haven't a clue what you're doing, just give it a go and you'll figure it out. We didn't know exactly what we were doing when we started. And like I said, we, constantly testing everything. And that sounds like it's actually really time consuming. I was at something similar to this last week, and I said the same thing. You should constantly test, be constantly optimizing. And someone goes, well, you must have a huge marketing team if you can be constantly testing and optimizing. I was like, we really don't. And it's so easy to make those changes. So I would say just start there. Get your, whatever it might be, if you're just starting out with referral, decide on what your incentive is going to be for your customer and get that out. Even if you're not 100% on it, it's a good place to start. And then you can build from there.
Great advice. Tony, how about you?
Crikey, that's a difficult question. I think if you're going to ask your customers for feedback, prove to them that you're listening by demonstrating the actions you've taken.
Okay, excellent. Steve?
I would say work out who you're going to focus on, work out what the value exchange is when you focus on them, and then to the point that I mentioned earlier, work out when's the right time to do that, when's the point at which you can have the biggest possible influence over them.
Yeah.
Jem?
Well, obviously, I'd say start now. But aside from that, talk to your employees. So they will know how your customers feel because they're engaging with them every day. And the earlier that you can engage them in feeling like they're part of these decisions, feeling like they're part of what the big changes are that you want to bring and do by listening to customer feedback, the better the whole thing will go.
Yeah, excellent. Great. Is there any questions in the audience? Yes. Do we have a microphone? Oh, great. Thanks, Jenna.
Hello, I'm Laura from LNER, a train company. People don't know what that is. My question's mainly for Dave, I think, and it's around the decision to bring the advocacy scheme inside of the loyalty scheme instead of having it separate for all customers. It was just to dig into that a little bit because it's a bit of a quandary we're looking at the moment as well.
Sorry, to bring the advocacy within the loyalty program. Did I hear you correctly?
Yeah, that's right. So you've got your Mention Me program set for loyalty customers only. Is that right? Did I
it's not quite right. So
Okay.
I think my colleagues here from Virgin Experience Days are using Mention Me, and each part of the Virgin group will use advocacy as it needs to. Arguably not enough, actually. Perhaps out of today's stuff, we need to be using it more. But from my point of view, we definitely see a role with it within the loyalty program. I mean, in theory and in principle, we ought to be thinking about it as we're trying to think about the Virgin experience in totality as a bit more of an ecosystem, as a bit more of a thing which from a customer's point of view is joined up in every possible way rather than being different solutions and different conversations in different parts of the group. But that's a mission that we're on.
Cool, thank you.
We have, I'll tap into that a little bit too. We have some really cool use cases around what we can do there, and looking at maybe identifying those high ECR customers and giving them different access to different tiers within your loyalty program, or perhaps using it as a tool if someone's referred once but isn't part of your loyalty program. Let's get in front of them and get them to sign up. So really looking at how to make that customer journey connected is really key. Any other questions? No? Okay, great. Thanks very much for joining me today. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and thanks everyone for being here.